Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Joe Davis here from Southern New Hampshire University. Today we're going to talk about Justice 103 Correctional Systems, and in particular Discussion 3-2, which is the first part of milestone number 1, your final research project. So this is actually a very important session for you, assignment for you, because you're going to build the foundation. You're beginning to build the foundation for that final project. Okay, so the project is that you're going to have to create a research project. And I believe in Module 1 I did a whole session on the final project, but this is a quick review. You need an in-depth analysis of problems and solutions. Okay, you need to identify a specific issue or problem. It needs to be a recurring or an emerging problem. So examples, you can find these. The fastest way to find examples would be to look at the expanded table of contents in the textbook. So maybe you want to write about jail overcrowding. Frankly, that's what I'm going to use for our little mini lecture because it's the easiest one. Okay, so it could be gender issues. Those gender issues could be about staff or inmates, either one. Race, same thing. It could be staffing levels, it could be the inmate population. Ethnicity, violence inside the facilities, riots. Violence might be assault on inmates by staff, assault on inmates by other inmates, those types of things. Gangs in the prison system, prisoners' rights, death penalty, all of those kinds of things would be correctional systems issues. Okay, we're not talking about the courts and we're not talking about the legislative process. So the discussion question for today, once again we're going to break this question down, is review the final project document and the assignment guidelines and the rubric. I can't emphasize that enough. Read it over a couple of times so you know where you're going. It is your roadmap. Next, select the topic and post it in discussion 3-2. Okay. In addition, I'll provide feedback on your topic, and you can't write about it until you get final approval. So at the end of week 3, you will see me comment on your topic and say, this is a good one. Let's go with this one. And then finally, you should also provide constructive feedback to your colleagues and their assigned topics. Your topic will identify a specific issue or problem within the correctional system. That constructive feedback has to be meaningful. You can't just write, hey Joe, that was a great topic. I think jail overcrowding is a problem. That doesn't help me at all. But if you write back and say something like, Joe, that's very interesting. You want to write about jail overcrowding in the county jail system in Orange County, California. Have you considered looking at alternative sentences, perhaps restorative justice or even community corrections programs, to help alleviate overcrowding? Now that would be something of value. So I hope you get the idea. You're trying to help each other here. You're not trying to just bang out something and move on. The final project is based on your prior coursework as well as this coursework. Okay, and remember, you're looking forward, so you may want to look forward at future chapters. Examine what new contexts you can create as a correctional officer to tackle the challenge you've identified, knowing you're not going to be able to solve the problem of prison overcrowding as a correctional officer, but you're aware of it and you can develop those concepts and topics as though you were writing to the warden or the facility commander or an academic paper like you are. The final project outcomes. The research paper helps you meet the following course outcomes. The most important one here is to analyze the current and future issues of corrections. Current and future issues of corrections. And I would have to say, death penalty was listed earlier. I'm not sure that's accurate now that we get to this slide, because capital punishment and the death penalty is not a corrections issue. That is a legislative political issue and a judicial issue. The correctional system would merely carry out the sentence, so you may want to think about that. All right, what are the final project guidelines? Your paper needs to be about 5 or 6 pages. We went through this once before, and depending on how you lay your page out and the font and all of that, a page of text is between 250 and 300 words. Okay, Depends if you have a lot of citations in it, things like that. You should have a cover page. You should have an abstract that's less than 120 words. If you use the APA format guide in the OWL section, you can find that. There should be a little brief introduction to your paper, less than a paragraph. And then you should have the main elements of your paper. And then finally your reference pages. Okay? You must reflect high quality research and reasoning. Wikipedia and Google are not going to be your main sources. I've tried to emphasize how easy it is to use the Shapiro Library or to use Google Scholar as an example, so that you can find a handful of good resources, because if you're looking at any of these topics, there is just a plethora of research done on all of these things. Okay, the final project is going to start with a little introduction, as I mentioned, your abstract, your cover page. And then there's going to be a background, and that's where you're going to put the situational, organizational, and environmental context of the issue or question. It's not a lengthy part of your paper. This is not the bulk of the paper. It's merely background. So perhaps a page, something like that. Then you're going to have your identification of the problem. And that's the challenges or the challenge and the problems inherently associated with the issue. So those problems are going to be chronic overcrowding in the Orange County jail system, chronic overcrowding in all prisons in the United States, chronic overcrowding in the Southern New Hampshire state prison system. And you're going to start with a paragraph that may say the Southern New Hampshire state prison system was founded in 18 whatever it was, when it had 17 inmates in it, and today there are 5,000 inmates in the state prison system, and the bed capacity is less than 200, whatever it is. And then you're going to say, write about, well, there's been rehabilitation, there's been retribution, there's been incarceration, there's been legislation. You're going to hit the highlights so your reader understands the background. When you come to the identification of the problem, now you're going to zero in. And the problem with overcrowding, the easy one is there aren't enough jail beds. That isn't maybe the problem. The problem might be the wrong type of inmates are coming to the jail. And so that's where you see the movement toward nonviolent felonies. That might be part of the problem, is the state legislature passing laws, judge sentencing. I don't know. You have to do the research to see. It could be that there's not an appropriate use of alternative resources. I mentioned community corrections, restorative justice, those kinds of things. Okay? That's what you have to research and identify. This isn't your opinion. This is your research. Then you do your analysis, your examination, evaluation, and analysis. Now comes your recommendations. Okay, and the decisions and actions necessary by policymakers and government leaders to deal with the issue or question. And then finally you get to put in your critical assessment and recommendations based on your research. And yeah, it could be your personal professional experience. So you can't just write, well, I've been a police officer, a correctional officer, a probation, parole agent. Not until you get to the end. And you have to have all the other research. Okay. The rest of the projects, this is where we are as the discussion board, and this is the one we're talking about. You get feedback, you come up with your topic. This is graded as a discussion, so you're expected to participate. In week 4, module 4, next week's, it'll be task 4-3, you have to submit an outline. And this is an extensive paper. When it says it's a 1 or 2 page document, it's more extensive than just banging out a quick outline. Okay, you need to provide an overview of your scholarly resources you'll use. So you should have already begun using some of your resources, or at least identified them, that you're going to be looking here and here and here for your stuff. And then you have to provide supporting evidence that you'll use. So you may have a theory, you may have an academic paper, you may have something from American Corrections Association, and then the supporting documentation may come from the prison website for the prison in your state, something like that. And this is submitted to the instructor and graded separately. It is basically a short paper exercise, if you will. Next is Module 6. You notice there is a 2-week break so that I can get your paper, your outlines graded, then get them back to you, and you can get to work on writing a rough draft. There is a rubric for the rough draft. This is another very specific assignment in a paper. It's your finished paper, almost completely ready to go. It's a rough draft. It's graded separately. And then finally in Module 7, which now is only 4 modules away, you submit your final paper, and this should be complete, it should be polished, have all of the elements, and it should reflect the feedback you've gained throughout the course. The final project outline rubric is there be an outline of issues, research, and organization, what research you're going to conduct. You can read these things and see. This is just a reminder. The rough draft rubric, the critical elements are that you have to have an outline of the issues, outline of your research, same thing. And then the final project, current issues, challenges, recommendations, research, and writing. So this is a scaffolding, as it's called in academia, or a building block, perhaps like a stairway, if you will. So you start out with the discussion board, you get the concepts down, and you get your topic, and then you move on to your outline, rough draft, and the final paper.